you.
I can leave at 3:30. I just want to apologize. I'm going to say this great.
I'm sorry?
I can leave at 3:30. I just want to be rude. And have you think I'm just leaving?
Okay.
Let me know.
All right.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll probably have a script read. I'll probably have a script read, but.
Yeah, Bridget's coming in.
Lee, I have a question before you move on.
All right.
Just could you touch on script a little bit more around script and health? We were discussing that here, and in terms of having health, serious health issues and related to script, could you touch on that?
Sure. And we don't have to limit it to script and health. The statement is that all health issues are hub. The truth of us is that God is expressed as individual being, as the being that we are. That being is the spiritual being that's having the human experience, and that being does not have any health problems, any health issues at all. All health issues, all problems, all disease, sickness, any impairment at all. We were talking specifically about children with ADD and autism and things like that. All of these problems are just a human belief in these problems. And if no human beings believed in any of these problems, they wouldn't exist. So all disorders, all problems, anything that is less than perfectly serene, perfectly comfortable, perfectly happy, is the result of universal human belief. And in particular, Sarno recognized reoccurring back pain as the result of repressed rage, and in 25,000 cases that he studied, this was the truth for him. We know that's possible because the glitch, the fight-or-flight syndrome, is a result of the brain, the psyche, changing the physical body, tightening up the capillaries, raising the blood pressure as a result of fear. And what Sarno is saying is that that repressed rage is tightening up the capillaries and constraining blood flow and restricting oxygen flow to muscles, and lack of oxygen flow to muscles is pain. So that comes from there. All the other capillary diseases, the diseases that are a result of lack of oxygen to various parts, can be seen in the same light. And he was talking about chronic fatigue syndrome and, what we used to call the yuppie diseases. All of those are imposed on us by our own internal beliefs, which are Hub's beliefs, not our own internal beliefs. So all physical problems are directly a result of our believing what Hub says. Old age and dying are a Hub belief, are a result of believing in Hub. Maturing and moving on to the next phase beyond the veil is a different thing, but getting old and decrepit and dying is Hub. All of this is just human universal belief taking over us and us buying it and us creating it as our experience. Okay?
Thank you.
Uh-huh. I want to talk about personal sense. Paul Gorman did us a big favor by stressing so much the need to eliminate personal sense as part of spiritual growth, or as the foundation of spiritual growth. And we saw, as a result of doing that work with him, that what we call kid is just personal sense. It's just a particular personal sense that's associated with fear. So let's talk about personal sense itself. goal of humanhood, the goal of this spiritual gymnasium that we're all reincarnating into, is so that we can discover who we really are, so that we can attain God consciousness, so that we can discover the spiritual being that we truly are. And to do so, we have to eliminate our humanhood, which is what we call personal sense. So when I talk about personal sense, what I mean is the belief in separateness from God, the separateness from our spiritual being self, from our self which is an expression of God, the believing that we're independent. And personal sense is a belief in a human being that needs to take care of itself and protect itself and ensure its own survival and ensure its own happiness. And this is exactly the personal sense that the Big Book talks about when it talks about trying to manage and control the play to suit ourselves, managing the props and managing the lights and managing the script and managing everything else. In my ocean waves analogy, personal sense would be the idea of the wave thinking that it's separate from, rather than part of the ocean, or rather than an expression of the ocean. In fact, a wave is just an expression of the ocean. But if the wave thought it was separate from the ocean and felt that it was responsible for its own sailing content and its own height and its own curl, and whether or not it had spin drift and how fast it was moving and in what direction, and felt that it was responsible for this and should take charge of it, then that would be a very unhappy wave because it had this personal sense. Oh, I need more salt. My salt content is low. What can I, or I want to go south and this thing's breaking on the West Beach, or I should be higher so they can surf, or I should be lower so they can, et cetera, et cetera. So that's personal sense. And specifically, it is the idea that my belief that I'm a separate being from God that is preventing me from recognizing that I am nothing but an expression of God. My oneness is prevented only, my experience of oneness with God is prevented only by my insistence on believing that I'm separate from God and God is over there doing its thing and I'm here doing mine, and I need to take care of myself. The happier position to take is knowing that I'm an instrument through which and as which God is living and expressing itself. And that would be the position to be looking at with respect to everything, relationships we're in, careers we're following, etc., etc. We are individuals in that as there are individual waves, but we are not unique, separate, autonomous, or one, or separate from God. Wayne Lickerman, in fact, talks in some of his books about what he calls false sense of authorship. We have a confusion that when a thought happens here, first of all, my confusion is based on the fact that I'm convinced that effects must have causes. Okay, we're deeply conditioned to believe in cause and effect. Causes result in effects, and effects have to have causes. It didn't just happen, it needed a cause. Something caused it to happen. So when I have a thought in my head, I look around and I think it's a private thought. I think it's a separate thought. And so I think I must be the cause of that thought. So
he's 9 years old.
I take possession of that thought and think that I'm the author of that thought. And it's not true at all. The thought is just a happening, like I'm just a happening. That's part of the expression. Similarly, if I do something like picking up this mug here, I don't see anybody else that can be the cause for that activity. So I think that I must be the cause of that activity. So I think that I'm the author of the desire to pick up that glass, and I'm the doer, rather than thinking that God, as Lee, chose to pick up that mug as part of the demonstration of this teaching that God, as Lee, is mumbling forth. Okay? So the sense of authorship, the sense that I think anything or I do anything or I decide to do anything, is part of the illusion of personal sense and is preventing me from having the experience of God living my life. If we get that personal sense is just the result of Hub broadcasting beliefs in personal sense subliminally, then we can begin perhaps to get away from that. We all believe that we're separate beings purely because our parents and our teachers and every television show and every movie and every book we've ever read and everybody we've ever talked to and every church we've ever gone to and every minister and every guru and everybody we've ever talked to has confirmed that we are separate entities. I mean, when you're a baby, parents teach you, this is your nose and this is my nose, trying to teach us our separateness so that we can have the right pronouns. It's endless. So we're deeply conditioned to believe that we're separate selves, and that's what's preventing us from having the experience of oneness with God. So Paul's point and my point is that personal sense has to go. Personal sense, by the way, is the one that has fear. All fear is fear for my personal separate self. I'm going to die. I'm going to be hurt. I'm not going to get mine. I need to take care of myself. Personal sense is the author of all my fears. Personal sense, as accepted from Hub, is the author of all my fears and all these beliefs. And if there were no personal sense, if I had no personal sense, then clearly I could not have a script. Because the script is purely a self-preservation item. Nor would I have any resistance behaviors, nor would I have any fantasies, nor would I have any fantasy behaviors, nor would I have any concerns about relationships or being alone or being all one or anything like that. I have a few more bullets here, and I'm just going to do the bullets, and perhaps this will bring up some discussion. The way to die daily to personal sense is to remind ourselves that Hub is impersonal and it has no power, and I'm one with God, and bring that to our consciousness regularly. But we can't just die to Hub universally. We have to die to each specific Hub belief that we have. Every belief that we have in a power other than God has to go. So we can be perfectly clear that that germs have no power, but not clear that genes have no power. So we can be perfectly clear and never catch the flu because we know, because it is our belief that flu does not cause, that flu germs can't cause flu, but we check to see how long our parents lived so that we have an idea of how long we live, how long we're going to live, or we check to see if our parents died of this or that or the other thing, and fear that we're going to die of that because we believe in the power of our genes and DNA. So you can have one belief, one area, one fear, one piece of personal sense gone, and another piece of personal sense alive and well. And they all need to be identified and addressed. And script work is really the process of identifying and addressing the 3 or 4 greatest fears, greatest instances of personal sense that we have, because they're the ones that are making our lives miserable and destroying our loves and our relationships and our careers and our everything. So now you can perhaps see why we're not looking at the kid work and doing the kid work and writing to our kids and such like, because there is no kid. The kid is just one more example of personal sense, one more example of fear. It's just a strong piece of personal sense. And if we eliminating personal sense and integrating kid are identical.
You made it $7 more. Alcoholism in regards to that thing of whether it's a belief or.
Of course,
I can't find it in the tape I tried.
Of course, alcoholism is just a belief. That's hub too. That's a belief in the power of alcohol. That too is hub, and it's a compound hub belief because it's a belief in the power of alcohol, and it's a belief that a particular gene structure results in alcohol affecting some of us differently than others. But both are just beliefs in powers other than God. God does not have alcoholism. There's no such thing. God does not have genes. It's purely, again, human universal belief coming forth.
Lee?
Yes.
If ultimately the goal is to eliminate personal sense and all of that stuff like belongs to personal sense, then what would the point be of doing the releasing the rage or the crying? Because that's all part of personal sense. So if you got rid of that, you wouldn't need to cry and rage.
That's how you get rid of it. That's part of getting rid of personal sense.
Okay.
It's in your body. It comes up. You have no control over it. We just had an example in the first half of this class of the tears coming so quickly that there was no elapsed time between the glitch and the tears. They need to be expressed. They're in your body. And yes, I know there's no body, but until you're free of your humanhood, it's our experience that needs to happen. Our experience.
With the kids, before we used to do things such as swing or do color or do anything. So is that the same way dealing with the rage as dealing with the childlike personal sense?
No, we don't do anything to sustain the childlike personal sense. We need to get the physical stuff out of our body. You know, what happens is that some of these beliefs and some of these things have been going on for so long that they're just ingrained into our, the grooves with which they're in our body are very deep. They're just deeply ingrained, and they need to be gotten rid of. And the tears need to be cried, and the rage needs to be screamed, and the false beliefs need to be deprogrammed, and we need to just address all this stuff and undo this massive conditioning that's been going on for 1,000 lifetimes, and which is continuing to go on thanks to the 7 billion out there who are radiating at us.
So it's just getting rid of all those things that we learned, like you were saying, getting rid of them now.
Yeah, we're just going to recognize personal sense and recognize it, identify the fact that this is personal sense. Oh, here is another case in which I am believing I'm separate from God and need to take care of myself. And if we can put that in conjunction with the experience of the presence of God, then we will be eliminating personal sense and all this work will be happening. Just another case in which I believe I'm separate and have to take care of myself, yeah.
So, Christy here, see if I'm on the right track. So, it's as if my intellectual understanding, I intellectually know that there's only one power. I intellectually know, but it's as if for me, I for me to eliminate personal sense, I need to take each individual, because you said we're individuals. I have to have, it's almost as if I have to have the experience of the elimination. It's a combination of belief, changing my belief, but also somehow like an experience of it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and
the point is that, as Joel pointed out and we said last week, knowing the truth doesn't work.
Yeah.
The reason knowing the truth doesn't work is because the truth that you know isn't the truth. Truth with a capital T is the experience of oneness with God, of oneness. End of statement. Truth with a capital T is the experience of oneness. And it has nothing to do with intellectual knowledge. However, intellectual knowledge is necessary to point us in the right direction so that we can get to the experience. We have to get the intellectual truth and understand that. That is the stuff that we take into our pondering, which deepens and deepens until we have the experience. But what we're saying, and thank you for making that point a little clearer because I hadn't seen it quite as clearly before, what we're saying is that we have to experience truth with a capital T about each lie with a little L, and fear with a little F, and hub with a little H, okay? We have to go through and experience the truth. We have to realize, this is what realize means. Make real the truth. Item by item.
But Lee, I guess I'm hearing the sort of, well, maybe I'm the only one who has a question, but I have a feeling that the next, I mean, I know this is sort of unfolding how we want it to be, but really is the next few sessions of you helping us get some tools to do that? Because I understand what we need to do, but then the next, I'm one of those people I want to know, well, then how do I do it?
How do I do it? Hopefully we'll get some tools.
Go ahead.
The statement for today is whenever a glitch or a script comes up, which is what this work is focused on, and what we do with the script is true for everything. You know, scripts are just the 3 or 4 worst examples of personal sense, okay? The answer is getting away from script and glitch, whenever you have a reaction to anything, that's personal sense, okay? And if you develop the habit of recognizing that reactions are my individual, personal, separate from God's self reacting to something, that's where the work is, okay? If you recognize every reaction as an example of personal sense and identify, oh, that's personal sense, I think that blah, 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 and go back and confront that personal sense or of that part of yourself with truth, capital T, the experience. Oh no, I know in that I have experienced that all there is God. You know, the answer is no, I don't need to take care of myself. All there is God.
But right, sometimes when you're in the middle of the big script or you're having that emotion, reaction,
then you do the
and
script.
Intellectually we know.
Yeah, then you do the script steps and manage your script. That's why we're doing that first. That's why we do the humanhood. We get to the point in peace where we can actually do this pondering, this truth pondering and sitting in the silence work.
Right, but I guess I hear what you're saying, because a lot of times I have the experience of the capital T truth, but it's not when I'm in the script. But the problem for me is when I'm in it, you get to that place.
That's right. Okay. Fair enough.
That's why I'm here. I'm hoping I'm going to get better.
All right.
Like once in a while you get that connection.
So let me hit points 14 and 15, and 15 will address that. 14 is henceforth we must become consciously aware that we're one with God. And we do that by, 1, stopping judging by appearances. Don't believe the appearance, because that's Hub's concept of it. Know the truth. 2, go within, do the pondering, do the sitting in the silence. for no purpose other than the experience. Because any other purpose is personal sense.
Yeah. Can you read that again?
Go within for no other purpose than the experience, capital E.
So that's like that going to God only for God.
That's what it is. Because because only personal sense would go for anything else, right? Okay. 3, wait for the feeling of the peace or the presence. Then 4, this feeling, with a capital F, is conscious awareness of oneness. When I'm feeling the presence, I am, in that moment, consciously aware of the oneness, capital O. So, while you're feeling the presence, explore it. Discover that it's you. Okay? That's the practice. And then 15 says, or practice the awareness exercise. That's why we were given it. And for anybody that doesn't know what the awareness exercise is, we're going to do the awareness exercise here tonight at 7:30. Feel free to dial in on the phone. We're going to tape a new awareness exercise and practice it. I'm getting that we're going to... See, I got 3 more pages of stuff to do today, and we're just about out of time. So I'm really getting that we have way too much stuff than we have classes, and we love you, dear. Bye. We have way more stuff than we have classes, and we're going to have to figure out the correct approach for extending this, or I don't know. One possibility would be to not share on Wednesday night, but just discuss truth. Maybe we could start up doing an hour of work on Wednesday evenings or something like that. How many people would not be available on Wednesday?
What time?
7?
7:30.
7:30 is better? We might do something there and make it available on phone. You know, there's just too much stuff, and 10 weeks is just not enough to do it. And even if we extend and do 2 more weeks in after the second gathering or the fourth gathering, another 2 more weeks in December, there's just a lot of stuff.
You're going to put together a written document of that, though, right? And, have you gone online to the F homepage? All right. There's transcripts of the previous 4 talks and all the bullets, and here, all these bullets you're going to get as they're being edited by me right now. They'll be up this week.
So what we're doing tonight will be on as well?
We're going to build a new tape of the awareness exercise tonight and make that available. Now, I also want to talk about impersonalization, because that's one of the 2 outstanding humanhood tools that I talked about as far as managing script. I want you to realize how completely impersonal your script event is. And the reason your script event is completely impersonal is because everything in the universe is completely impersonal. And that's because God constitutes individual being, all individual beings, every individual being. God is spirit, and God is the quality and quantity of everything. And God is absolutely impersonal. How can it be personal? There's only oneness. There are no persons. God is totally impersonal. It is just everything, okay? And that is not a personal thing. I mean, personal has no meaning with respect to God. So your body is nothing but your human concept of your spiritual body. It's your finite concept, and it's finitized so that you can think about it conceptually, but that's just that's just individual. It's not personal sense, and it's absolutely impersonal. Your body isn't, the wave isn't is just a bump in the ocean. There's one being infinitely manifested, and that's God, and God is impersonal, and I got here, God is law. Realize the impersonalness of gravity, the impersonalness of rain, the impersonalness of the sunshine, the impersonalness of typhoons. Everything is impersonal. Law is impersonal. And then get it also that your individual being is impersonal. And if you have a very strong personal sense, consider this. The individual being that you are has reincarnated many, many, many times. Sometimes male, sometimes female, sometimes black, sometimes white, sometimes tall, sometimes short, sometimes Chinese, sometimes Ethiopian, sometimes it's starved to death, all that, okay? That being that you are is impersonal. It has manifested as all these personal senses, or that all these hub beings that have personal sense, but that being that you truly are, which is the constant thing across all these incarnations, is clearly impersonal. It's all these persons. And in the same sense, what I said the other day about the Lee that fell out of the tree at 5 or 6 and the Lee that's here today is exactly the same I, the same Lee, the same I-ness that I have, the same sense of I that I have. And if you'll think about it, there is not a single cell in that Lee's body that's in this body, and there's not a single thought in that Lee's mind that's in this mind, and there's not a single thing that Lee believes that this Lee believes, okay? Totally separate manifestations, embodiments. So the I that I am is clearly impersonal. It's not that 3-year-old person or the 6-year-old person or the 70-year-old person or the dead person, whatever.
Lee, there's a great movie out right now that illustrates all that. It's called Cloud Atlas. I highly recommend it. Okay. Fabulous.
Go see Cloud Atlas.
Yeah.
And it's a book.
Somebody
And it's a book. Yes.
Somebody take me.
Yes, it opened Friday.
Okay, and just add to that all good is totally impersonal. Good is just hub radiating its good, and it's being picked up by whoever picks it up, or God is just being good, and it's picked up by everybody who lets it manifest through. All evil is impersonal. It's just hub radiating its beliefs, and particular receivers picking it up, those receivers that happen to pick it up, and it's not their fault that they're picking it up. That's the way they're conditioned. So there is no perpetrator if you've been molested, or no perpetrator in the sense of the needle for this particular script read. It's all just hub being picked up by a person who's powerless over what he or she picks up. So there's no one who's responsible for any error in their consciousness. It's just hub radiating and me picking up whatever I'm conditioned to pick up, and my conditioning is not the result of my personal choice. So there is everything that's being done to me is first of all being done totally impersonally and powerlessly by the perpetrator or needle, and it's being done to impersonal me who has an illusion of personalness, okay? So it's all totally impersonal. So 2 more points and then we'll open it up. 3 more. So when you're doing the managing the script work, approach your needles or approach your perpetrators as if they needed healing. Although in fact they don't, you do. You're the one that's seeing them as reading your script. And just know that your spiritual nature is the impersonal I that you are experiencing right now. So if right now you just get the sense of I'm here, thinking I'm this. If if you just get the sense of that I, that impersonal I is in fact the spiritual being that's having this human experience. So the final point is that everything about script is impersonal. So, yes, now we're open.
I've been led to believe, whatever, that some people are further along the spiritual path. But if everything's personal sense or impersonal, then essentially there's no comparison, no nothing.
Some people are apparently further along on their individual path, but not on a personal path. There is no personal path.
Yeah, and there would be no individual path if it's all this oneness.
But there are waves on the ocean. That's what this expression is all about at this level of existence. And so there are individuals. God is expressed as individual being, and you are an individual being. Your content of your consciousness is different from the content of my consciousness. The body you're wearing is different from this body, but it's all impersonal.
So if you come at things from the I point of view, like you can connect to that before you go into things, there will be no script read.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You just connect to that, right?
Yeah. I had one of my scripts used to be, one of them was never being accepted and another one was never being good enough, and I had a boss back in the early 80s who had no life and worked 20 hours a day, and we were designing computer chips, and he wanted us all to be there and working, and we just worked, 16 and 18-hour days for like 6 or 8 months and delivered a product 4 months late because we were so understaffed. And so now the next project, which we had allowed a year to do, was due in 6 months. And I made the comment about, well, we'll extend the schedule. And his comment was, well, we'll just have to tighten up. We'll just have to work harder. I had one of those big moments of clarity. And I saw the whole thing that I didn't know about script and resistance data, but I saw how hard I was dancing. Remember the book, I'm Dancing as Fast as I Can? I saw that, and I saw the whole thing, and I saw the ridiculousness of it, and I saw how that was what he had to do, and it just was so clear to me. And I looked him dead in the eye, and I said, no. And his jaw opened, he tried to say something, and he literally is incapable of saying anything. And then he tried to say something again, and again was incapable of saying anything, and he tried to say a third time, and he finally said, all right, walked out of the office, okay? That's the power of being centered. You're a Zen master. When you know who you are, or you're in a moment of clarity, or you're knowing your oneness with God, or whatever.
Can I ask you
Zen master.
something? The closest battery?
Yes.
Near here? Way back.
They're not muted, that's all.
Oh, okay. Somebody needs to mute your phone. Thanks. Yes, go ahead.
Hard to articulate exactly where to go and what I'm going to say, but I'm in a place where I'm doing lots of meditation, lots of contemplative reading, and I found myself trying to, it almost feels like I'm trying to swallow a concept that I already have. The concept is that God is one. Up until doing this class, I just thought I always thought of myself as very spiritual, and we're all connected and all this stuff. And as soon as I started reading Dole, and he's putting it right out there, I can feel this duality and stuff. It's almost like, not almost, I feel that the left side of me is like this thought consciousness, all this one, everything we're talking about. And sometimes in my meditation, I'm like looking to the left and looking to the right. And then there's me over here, little me, trying to just getting bombarded with script event after script event. And I see the two happening, and I see that it's not two, it's really just
Personal sense.
Personal sense.
I
get the concept, I see that it's happening, and then I don't know which side of me is trying to hurry myself along to stop this nonsense so that I can get this oneness and get to this place that we're talking about, where I can just literally let everything go. And I see that that's what's in my way. And it's like a smoker going, yep, these are killing me, let me light this up and take another toke. That's what it feels like for me.
Yep.
As I watch myself, thing after thing. However, I see the progress, I see that it's moving on. So I'm using my left hand and my right hand. I see the progress, but it's just trying to move it along.
Okay, now here. The I'm trying to move it along is personal sense.
Yep, I can do it.
Stop it.
Oh.
Yeah.
No. Over and
You go back to God just for God.
over and over again, recognize the ludicrousness of trying to stop it, or trying to make different progress, or the idea that you can do anything different is personal sense.
I'm even trying to go to trick this side of me and say,
I'm trying to trick this side of me. Personal sense. Personal sense. What was that one-liner that you gave us today, Aaron?
It was good.
Yeah. Thinking outside the box is an oxymoron. The box is thinking. All right, trying to do anything is an oxymoron. That's the false sense of authorship that Wayne Lickerman talks about in the Advaita books. The idea that I can do something is the false sense of authorship. And for sure, don't ever let the word should creep into your sentences. I heard you say should earlier, Christy. What's worse than I can do something is I should do something.
I heard once someone said, you know, if you keep shooting and shooting, and you end up shooting all over yourself.
Yeah, don't shoot on me.
I mean, like today I was really stressed, and I come here, and now I realize, like, nothing matters. Like, nothing matters.
Bingo.
And so now I don't feel stressed at all, because
Bingo.
What, who cares?
Yeah.
It gets done, doesn't get done, whatever. If I drop dead, it's still going to keep going.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Yeah, good.
That's totally good.
Yeah. Hey, you're having.
I feel the same way as you. I go back, I do everything.
Sure. But you see, all we're getting during these next 5 weeks is, and apparently it's working, we're getting a clear definition of the problem. We're getting to where we can see the problem clearly. And the answer to these problems, unfortunately, is practice, practice, practice. It's a spiritual gymnasium. That's all it is. God is not the least bit interested in us having white picket fences and happy retirements and lovely children and stuff like that. God is interested in us discovering that we're God.
So does going for God just for God mean don't go for God when you're in script, just go for God when you're... Is that what...
Go for God whenever you can, but don't go to get anything. Go to have the experience of.
I mean, it's just hard because you have to go through your life every day. You've got things you've got to do and do and do. But it's like, how can you connect to this? We can't be in this all time, you know?
Oh?
I wish I could. And then I feel like I got to pick up the kids and do this and get them to eat food.
Well, see, that's personal sense. The idea that I have to do that is an entirely different thing than God as I is now picking up God as the kid. The I that has to pick up the kids is the personal sense we're talking about. And the fact is that God is either going to pick up those kids or not. Okay? God as Stacy is either going to pick up those kids or not, and Stacy really has nothing to say about it. It's Stacy's intent to go pick up the kids, but that's her conditioning, and because that's what good mothers have to do and should do and all that sort of stuff. So Stacy apparently is conditioned, but Stacy may change her mind a mile short of the school and not go, or Stacy may have a car wreck, or, so the question is whether or not God's going to pick up those kids or not. And if God doesn't pick up the kids are God anyway, so what difference does it make? They're fine. You shift to that position.
Okay.
It's not I have to. I don't have to. I have to is personal sense.
Take all the responsibility out.
Robert Adams used to call it the I thought. Just the I thought. That's the problem. The I thought. And we had a class here, you probably have heard it, I don't know, 10 years ago. The question was, who would I be if I never said I or used my name? If I never thought my name or said the word I or used the pronoun I, who would I be? Interesting question. About out of time. We can do a couple more.
I'd like to, just if I may, this is Jay. What helped me with the personal sense lately, when I was pondering what came to me, was it's the persecuted self that is, for me, that's radiating the scripture, picking them up. It's always somebody's doing something to me or something's happening to me. And once I saw that there isn't anybody that's persecuting me except my own thinking, and that started to go through the contrary actions about what really is the reality of this life. It was amazing. I mean, look where we are.
So for sure, the persecuted self is personal sense, but so is the unpersecuted self.
Yes.
The thoroughly loved self is personal sense, if you're being loved by somebody. Oh, my wife loves me. That's personal sense. There's just love.
Hi, this is Erin. I'm really starting to recognize that there's two modes. There's push and there's flow. And when I'm in push, I want something. And that's personal sense. That's expectation, and then there's flow. And I've heard you say, Lee, for over the years, when I would say this has to get done or this should be, that way, you would giggle and you would say, well, actually, maybe it doesn't. And I've always come back with, but things are going to crumble. I mean, everything is just going to come crumbling down. And the deeper I go into this work, the more I realize what needs to fall away needs to fall away. It needs to fall away. And maybe that's a great thing. And I've watched over the past couple years a lot of things just crumble away. Things that I thought would kill me, specifically leaving a job that I had trained for many years, and it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Jesus Christ. I don't know anything. Aaron does not know anything. But flow instead of push. It's the only way I can articulate it.
Just watch what happens. Grab a bag of popcorn and watch what happens.